What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Elevate Your Grind, brought to you by the Cannabis Lab. I am your host, Todd Rosales, and it is lovely to be back here. I think I've been keeping my promise of getting you guys one episode a week. It seems like we're recording one a week, so I think I'm putting one out a week. You should be getting it. So back to a regular cadence. Trying to do this as much as I can. We're gonna be at MJ BizCon at the end of the month. This will come out next week, so yes, you will see that before it. Check us out on that Thursday. Does anyone know what day that Thursday is? I talk like I actually have a production staff that's going to answer me. Hey, Todd, it's the 30th. So we're going to be live from the show floor from the Green Check Verified booth on Thursday, November 30th. So check us out at MJ BizCon. Of course, always check out all of our episodes at youtube.com/elevate your grind. Cannabis Lab events will be on November 16th, except for Broward, Dade, and Palm Beach County. Those are going to be November 12th. We are sponsoring the premiere of the Oaksterdam University movie that is going to be part of the Fort Lauderdale Film Festival. So check that one out as well. All right. For those of you that are fans of the show, have been watching for a while, so mom, your friends, everybody else, one of the things I've always talked about in your cannabis journey is journaling, right? I have a lot of friends who always say, I can't smoke weed and do this. I can't smoke weed and do that. I can't smoke weed and be social. And they ask me how I do it. Not that I do it well, but it's because I've spent a lot of time figuring out the weeds that I like, the strain lineages I like, the terpene profiles I like, the brands I like, the delivery mechanisms, because it was interesting to me. When I would get stoned, I would have certain days where I didn't want to do anything. And then I would have certain days where I wanted to do everything. And I never understood the difference between that until I started studying the legal cannabis market and made an effort to figure that out. So I talk very heavily about journaling. And to me, journaling has always been writing it down. But today's guest, they figured out a better way to do it using AI, using your phone. And I think it's a great experience that everyone should check out. So please welcome today's guest, David Kooi of Jointly. David, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, of course, man. Well, you obviously are a man after my own heart with what you guys have built with Jointly. So I downloaded the app. I just actually shared my first experience with it. It is pretty cool. So what brought you so obviously it was watching this show is what inspired you to create the app, right?
No, I wish I had found your show sooner. No, it was my own difficulty in my journey getting to know cannabis and getting it to work for the reasons why I wanted to use it. That was kind of the inspiration for the app in the first place. I think cannabis is misunderstood. I used to misunderstand it, and if you don't know that the plant is a complex plant that can be used for many different purposes, that people use it for different purposes, that it affects everyone differently, and that you have to create the conditions for success to make it work best for you. If you don't know those things, it's kind of a crapshoot whether for the average consumer, whether they're going to have a good experience or a bad experience, the kind of experience they want to come back to, or and so on. So it came out of a general frustration with that experience for myself as a patient starting in 2012, and grew to what it is today now.
So when you say you used to misunderstand the plant, talk to me about that, because I talk a lot on the show about when I first started using cannabis, I used it truly as a drug, and I used it just for disconnecting. I smoked weed at the end of the night with friends, and I wanted to get as high as possible and just laugh my ass off or do whatever, right? And then, there were certain things I'd noticed that would happen at certain times when I'd smoke, and then I started leaning towards leveraging cannabis for those particular outcomes, whether it was a good night's sleep, whether it was motivation, whether it was focus. So
Right.
would you say that was along the same lines? Like, you had maybe an unhealthy relationship with it at first, and it bloomed into a healthy relationship once you educated yourself? Because I do believe there requires a lot of education to truly understand someone's relationship with cannabis.
Yeah, I think it really does. My misunderstanding at first was because of the stigma. I grew up in the 80s with, this is your brain on drugs, and assuming that stoners were lazy and not contributing to society and so on. And so I grew up with that stigma in mind and didn't use cannabis until 2012, when I started using it, when I had heard it might be helpful with anxiety, for anxiety symptoms, and started using it under the medical program at the time. But I realized that not only can it be helpful for finding calm, it can be helpful for energizing. It can make you more creative. It can make you more focused if you get it right. It can help you sleep better. And so I saw it before as a one-dimensional thing that, you know, people were just using it to get high. And I realize now, and our data proves that jointly, that people have, you know, in our data, people have an average of 2.4 reasons that they use cannabis. And those reasons can be relaxation, stress relief, improved sleep, enjoying social experiences, and so on.
No, it's incredible. And I never even thought about the back end of the fact that the data that you guys now have on cannabis consumers, because I think most of the data that people have is wrong. You know, I see people generalize a lot, and you know, there's two camps of people. There are people that are catering to the current cannabis consumer, and there are people that are catering to the kind of curious, if you will. And like, don't get me wrong, I love the brands like Preferred Gardens and Alien Labs and everything else, but there is a cannabis culture around California cannabis culture. And there are people that I know that have been consuming for a long time that are starting to become vocal about saying they never felt like they were a part of that. And candidly, I believe I'm one of them, right? I've never been involved in cannabis culture as far as like sessions and things like that. I just enjoyed smoking weed, and I enjoyed smoking weed with my friends who smoked weed. That wasn't my precursor to liking somebody as if they smoked weed or not. Like, that never really meant anything to me. So I've been a working professional who's been smoking weed for 15 to 17 years, never really been part of the culture. My friend Sarah Stewart is probably the first one I saw who came forward to say that stuff. So it's very interesting to me to truly find out who the general cannabis consumer is, because it's not just, and I'm not hating on them. The culture is great and it is what it is. It's just not my thing. I like them. I like a lot of people in it. So I'm truly curious to know what the general cannabis consumer is across the board, not just in maybe California.
Right. Yeah. One of the interesting things is those in our app, and we can get into how it works, but in our app, people choose one of these 12 goals for their cannabis consumption. And the selection of those goals doesn't really vary much across state, which is really interesting. So even though there is, you know, this strong history cannabis culture in places like California, when you look at what the everyday consumer is using it for in California versus Florida versus New York versus Mississippi, the kind of the distribution of goal selection, just maybe sound like a statistician about it, but the distribution of goal selection across states is like, people are just as stressed in Mississippi as they are in New York City, and they're using cannabis for the same reasons, and they have just as much trouble sleeping in Los Angeles as they do in Santa Fe. And
no, but that's what we need. That's what we're looking for, right? Because you go back to what we talked about originally, is the stigma of the lazy stoner. Well, why don't we find out what people really are using cannabis for? So like, let's go back, and I want to get into the app because I think this thing's great, and this is exactly what you're talking about right here. And I wish I had better technology to where I can actually put it up on screen and people can see it more than just a over brightened app on my phone. But if we actually went back, right, and we look at the 60s and 70s and 80s, and who were the people that were known for smoking cannabis? It was your rock stars, your celebrities, your counterculture icons, you know,
writers, intellectuals. Yeah.
The cast of SNLs, intellectuals, journalists, right? But at the end of the day, like, I think we're in a unique situation now in 2020, 2023, where those same folks who never had an outlet to really talk about their lives have these podcasts and these long form platforms, and they talk about how, like, you know, Mick Jagger, maybe one of the greatest musicians ever, one of the biggest rock stars in the world, but he worked his fucking ass off to get there, right? Nobody ever saw the work side of thing, but that was kind of the mystique of being celebrity. The mystique of celebrity is not everybody can do it, but these guys and gals just work their fucking asses off. And we see that today. And I wonder if in, you know, the 60s through 80s through 90s, if they were transparent about the work they did, how hard they worked, the shitty gigs they had to do, how many times they had to perform for nobody until they got to that first arena, if we would still have that lazy stoner stigma, because cannabis was a huge part of music and pop culture and everything else. So it's curious now where an app like yours, maybe not celebrities who now have this platform to talk about their cannabis use, whether it's athletes or musicians, for the average person, because that's where social media is going, is we love our celebrities, but now you have the average person who's getting these followings because they're very relatable. And now you have the ability to tell us, how is the average person using cannabis? And is it okay? Like, because that will be what makes it okay for someone like me to be like, to bring this all the way back and make it about myself, because I'm good at that. I remember I started smoking cannabis late. I started smoking at like 22 or 23 regularly. And I remember thinking, man, I really enjoy this. I wish I didn't find it so late because I'm probably going to have to stop soon. And then I made my first President's Club trip for the company that I work for. And I got invited to back to one of the rooms to smoke. And it was everybody from the executive team there getting high together. And, you know, they're all anywhere between 40 and 60. And I'm like, you guys all smoke? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, so I don't have to give this up anytime soon. But your app is like the digital equivalent of that.
Right. Yeah. No, it's true about artists and performers. Like you think they just, when people accomplish something great, you think they've just appeared on the scene, and they've usually put in, the 10,000 hours it took them to get there. And you and I have talked before the show about how you put your 10,000 hours into to your cannabis practice, and the app aims to make it so that people don't have to put 10,000 hours in to learn how to succeed with cannabis. And so we provide a framework that makes the understanding of what we call purposeful cannabis consumption easier for people.
Very cool, man. So tell us more about the app. So the cool thing, so I set up my account, logged in, I smoked a little bit this morning and I documented that experience. And I got to say, it's really cool. So you come in here, it asks me what my goal is. And there are things like, energizing, creating, focusing exercises, recovering, enhance intimacy, plenty of options. So I put focus because that was my goal. It asked me the product that I used. And one of the cool things is it sees that I'm in Florida, and then I can go ahead and I can search, whatever product that I wanted. So like I'll type in gelato here, right? And they have different brands that are in Florida. And I know my camera sucks to show you guys this, but the gelato products, and it's from the different MMTCs here in Florida. And I always just went with gelato because I knew something would pop up. But I can go ahead and pick it. And if it's something that's newer, like if it's a new brand who signed, I can add that product myself. But it is a really cool experience because now I can go back to my reflections. I think that's what you guys call it. And I can look at the experiences that I have and how I rated it. And I'm somebody right now where I'm looking for that perfect sativa. And I always say this about cannabis smokers. I know I'm going on so many different topics here, but the shit just excites me. People who pretend to smoke indicas, they have more of a variety of things that they enjoy. They're just looking for that relaxed, disconnected feeling. Whereas I feel like sativa smokers, when they find that strain, they buy as much of it as they can. They look for it everywhere. So like with me, I remember in California, Cannabiotics Super Silver Haze was one of my favorite things I had ever smoked. And that's how what made me realize that I like hazes and a lot of haze crosses and things like that. But even down here in Florida, certain things are crossed with haze, but depending on what's crossed with, it may not give you that same experience. So to me with sativa, you have one side that puts you very much within your own head where you're very focused and you're very thoughtful and creative, but you're not very social. You're up here the whole time, and like people might be talking to you, you're tuning them out, you're thinking of the things that you need to think about. And then there are other sativas that just give you energy, and I'm talkative and I'm telling stories and everything else, and I'm trying to be mindful of which ones here in the state of Florida do which, because I've messed up sometimes and I've gone to watch football at a friend's house just thinking, oh, it's a sativa, and I'm sitting there just like analyzing plays in my head, not talking to anybody.
Yeah, it's the app helps you. It helps you keep track of which ones are working best for the reasons why you want to consume. So if there's and usually people end up with a different product or set of products that are best for them for the different goals, and then you can track your dose and what we call the other. After the dose, you can track what we call the 15 factors that can impact your results. So no matter what your goal is, things like dose matter, time between dose matters, whether you're hydrated matters, whether who you're with, where you are, all those, the classic set and setting. And as you continue to use the app to track your consumption, the analytics in there help guide you to, the to dial in those factors and product choices to get the best results for, for the kind of experience you want.
That's very cool. Yeah. So I remember after I documented the actual product itself, it started asking me questions like, what my sleep was the night before, what my hydration levels were, did I exercise prior to doing it, I think how my diet was today. And that I thought that was really cool too, because I had never thought about those external, how full my stomach was. And it's cool. There's a very easy, when the experience was in the day, was it late morning, afternoon? Like I thought that was really cool too, because that's not something. So when I tell people to journal, I've only told them to write down how they feel, whether or not they liked it, and what the strain was for remembrance, and what the dominant terpene profile was, if they can figure that out. You guys go further, and it's really like, I used to have this conversation with a lot of people. I had it with Ricky Williams a lot, and especially with the sativa, where depending on what you're doing or how you start your day when you smoke a sativa like that is kind of dictates how your day is going to go. It just kind of enhances what you were going to already feel, or just kind of make you feel it more. Right.
Yeah.
And those outside factors are not something that I've ever considered, because there have been times where, for example, Preferred Gardens Lights On is one of my favorite sativas in the state right now. It's a sativa leaning hybrid. And there are times where it's been the best strain I can use for working purposes, and certain times where it hasn't been. But I think that has to do with a lot of the outside factors that you discuss in your app.
Yeah. One of the ways I think about it is, if you think of your cannabis experience as a pie or pie chart, or like a 10 out of 10, like 100 out of 100, some measurement where there's your ideal experience, and that's 10 out of 10. If you, in our data, basically, we can see, that the product that you choose, for example, if you're going to go for a 10 out of 10 experience every time, the product you choose makes about 55% of the difference. The dose you choose makes another 10 or 15% of the difference. And then things like hydration and diet and sleep and exercise, those do have an impact, not as much as your product choice, but like people have contributed over 500,000 data points now, so that we can see, like, if somebody is hydrated, when they enjoy their cannabis, no matter the ingestion method, whether they eat it or drink it or smoke it or vape it, if they're hydrated when they consume, they'll rate the product that they're using 16% higher on average than if they weren't hydrated. No fault, nothing about the product, anything else about your set and setting, but if you have your body properly hydrated and lubricated and ready to go and accept the what's in the plant, then it so every health person is ever telling you to drink your water. It's good advice for cannabis consumers as well.
Yeah, it's so you're saying I should chug a bottle of water before every time I consume cannabis, huh?
Yeah, you'll like it better.
It's a good trick to the dispensaries. They should give out bottles of water when they're selling products, especially people are buying single pre-rolls. Like, here, consume this first. See, those are insights that I think more people should definitely understand. Talk to me about the origin story of the company itself. I know I asked you what inspired you to do this in your own journey with cannabis, but we had talked prior, and I think you had an amazing job prior to this, running a bicycle store. That sounds kind of ideal and fun and exciting. And you can use cannabis at a bicycle store. You don't have to worry about being involved in this crazy industry where people don't pay their bills. But what was the genesis of the company itself, of Jointly?
Yeah, so for the last 10 years before Jointly, I had founded and was running a bicycle shop in California, and that was after I had spent the first 15 years or so of my career climbing the corporate ladder and going to business school and all that kind of stuff. And I eventually got fed up with that and wanted to do something on my own and do something that I loved and do something that I'd enjoy and it would give me some freedom. And so I opened that bike shop and was riding with a friend of mine, Eric, who's my co-founder in Jointly. And he asked, it was California.
What kind of bikes were you guys on?
We were on road bikes. There's in the canyons around Los Angeles, there's a bunch of really nice canyon roads that you can.
I like bikes, so I had to
know. Trek is the brand that we sold most
Very
of.
Nice. Very nice.
And we were riding bikes, and he asked me at the time if I wanted to start a cannabis business, and I loved cannabis already at the time and had already spent years studying it for my own benefit. but didn't have any industry experience. And so like, well, what could we do? I have retail experience, so maybe we open a retailer. And as we got into that, we just didn't. We got discouraged by the time frame and the legal cost to get a license and the California market, et cetera, and so on. And somewhere in there, it came up this model that I had built for myself for how to learn cannabis, where I tracked my consumption. It was a journal like you're talking about, but because it's me, I used Microsoft Excel, and I'd track my product, the dose, and what I had learned. The 15 factors have expanded a bit since then, since I've gotten more professional input, but I would track the things that I thought mattered to my cannabis experience, because the very first time I used cannabis, I had one in like a with intention or for a therapeutic purpose. I had one gummy and I thought it was the best thing in the world, and so the next time I had it, I had two, and I had a terrible experience, and that just got me the wheels spinning and got me started looking into all the different factors that could impact my own personal cannabis experience. And so that became a little journal, a model that I made for myself. And we realized, because one of the things that was always frustrated for me as a consumer too is, if you go into a dispensary and you say, what's a good strain for anxiety or stress release, whatever your use case might be, you'll get a different answer from each person. You'll get a different answer in each dispensary, and it's not their own fault. They just don't have any data about what works best for the reasons why I'm shopping. They have their own personal experience. They have unhelpful frameworks, in my opinion, like indica, sativa. Strain names have always been really confusing to me. I know all about terpenes now, but at the time, didn't know anything about them. So it's just like this difficulty in matching people with products. And so we realized that by creating an app that had my model in it for how to succeed with cannabis, we could collect all of this goal-specific product performance data. So every time somebody uses the app, we ask them, why did you use cannabis? What's your product? How well did it help you reach your goal? And then we can add all that, accumulate all the collective wisdom of all those unique experiences, then to predict product performance for the next product, or for the next product you want to try or purchase.
How long had you been using that spreadsheet before you started this personally?
I built that in 2012. And probably used it for a few years myself, until I kind of felt like I had it kind of figured out for myself, and then I'd use it less often.
Did you think that anyone would care about it when you were doing it? Like,
no, of course not.
Because I feel like if that was me, that would be something I would build, but I would build and I'd be like, I can't show anybody how much I like weed this much that I'm willing to put this much effort into it. Like I feel like I talk about it all the time as it is.
Nobody at the time when Eric, we were on that bike ride, and he said, would you like to start a cannabis business? He didn't even know I was a cannabis consumer at the time, because I was like fully in the closet as a cannabis consumer. Didn't tell my mom, didn't tell, people that worked for me, didn't, it was just something I did privately on my own time, because it made my life better. But because of the stigma, I was afraid, when we decided to found jointly, I had to call my mom in Chicago and be like, okay, listen.
So,
I can explain.
That's great, man.
And yeah, so now we've used that data for two things. We used it to make a software product for retailers that helps bud tenders match people with products using our data. So they can talk to their customer about what their goal is and what kind of experience they want to have, and then we've built a tool where they can use our data to say of the stuff I have in the store right now, which are the products that are most likely to work best for the reason why you want to buy them.
Very cool.
And and then we also, now that this AI stuff has come along and become widely available, we're using our database. Like if you've played around with ChatGPT, imagine ChatGPT, but that knows everything about our data. So everything about cannabis consumption best practices, everything about goal-specific product performance. We're in the process of teaching an AI that we call Spark. That's also available for free in the app to play with. If you'd like, feel free to ask it anything you'd like. And
I did do that, and I thought that was cool because
how did it do?
So funny story. I was not expecting much, because when you first log in, it has like 3 or 4 prompts to give you to ask a question. They're very basic. So right. I'm like, all right, it's not going to be that good, because typically, if you go on, I'm a big fan of chat ask for help on websites now. I hate having to call somebody, because then this way I can accomplish other things while I'm
Right,
doing
while
it.
you're waiting. Yeah.
So, I've rediscovered Blue Dream. As every cannabis consumer knows, it's one of the best sativas there is. And it was Fig Farms has two Blue Dream crosses that got me back into it, Blue Face and Lucid Blue. So I just go and I asked it, what are the best crosses with Blue Dream? And he explains to me what Blue Dream is, and then it starts listing Dream Queen, Blue Dream Haze, Dream Star, Blue Nightmare, Dream Berry, and it tells you who it's crossed with, what it's known to do, and everything else. And I'm like, damn, this is really cool. So it actually knows like a lot of information about what I'm looking for. I just went ahead and made the assumption, because it wasn't very detailed prompts to begin with, that it wasn't going to give me great information, but it provides good information.
Nice, good. Yeah, it's not perfect. Those things are never perfect, but if you
can't make it perfect, then it's gonna destroy us.
Right. I'm hoping that as it advances, it'll keep me on it jointly as an intern.
It'll be the most chill AI there is.
So yeah, when I started using ChatGPT, the one that's available publicly, you can when you ask it questions, because it's trained on the sum of everything that's on the internet and human history, it's got the stigma kind of built into it, and it's got some ignorance kind of built into it, because it's based on the information that's publicly out there on the internet. And the information that's publicly out there on the internet is some good, some bad, but that's what ChatGPT's had to learn from. And so now we've got this database behind jointly of legal and licensed cannabis products, all their characteristics, cannabinoids, terpenes, brands, product types, everything. And it can basically call on that knowledge based on this the sum of everybody's experiences that have been added to. So all those different Blue Dream crosses, by now we've probably had enough users use the app who have reported on their experiences with those products, that it can tell you, well, if your goal is to energize and uplift, for example, then you might want to try these 2 or 3 or 4 options. And then obviously we also say experimentation is the key to purposeful consumption. That's the phrase I like to use. So like, just because the app says it worked best for everybody else, you still have to see how it's going to work for you. And then that's where we hope people will track their consumption and realize, this is the one that's best for me. This one, is a bit more hit or miss. This one's good as long as I make sure I'm eating well and exercising and I'm well hydrated.
There are 3 out of 5 on this list that I'm going to start looking for: Dream Queen, Blue Dream Haze, and Blue Nightmare. Definitely going to try to find those in the store somewhere.
Yeah. And that's something we're going to eventually enable more in the app, is for people right now in Michigan, New Mexico, Mississippi, soon to be a bunch of places in California. When it makes those recommendations to you in the app, we want to be able to connect you and that desire to purchase that product with a local dispensary that has it. So that's been part of our focus this year is talking to retailers.
So the immediate focus of the company is getting people on it and getting them use it and being able to educate themselves on products, on everything else. Where is the future of this business go? You had talked about recommended products, potential e-commerce. Where is the future of this? Because if we get people to start doing this, I think it changes as a paradigm shift in the industry to truly know what the average consumer is, because I think it's so skewed based state to state.
Yeah, I mean, long term, the goal with Jointly is to solve 2 problems. One is, I think it's hard for a lot of people to find success with cannabis. And I think that we need to make it easier for them. We need to provide frameworks that lead them. So one of the goals is just to continue to refine that and make it easier to use. Like the app that you're using now, we have more ideas for how to make it better than we have time in the day right now. And so we want to keep iterating on that app and making it more useful, easier to understand, more accessible, so that more people have a chance to experience the benefits of cannabis and learn it the way that you have and I have now. And then the second part is it's just about the difficulty of the product matching problem. I think in the industry, it's hard to match product with people. I think most people are pretty overwhelmed when they go into a dispensary, especially new people. A person who works in a store that has 600, 1,000 SKUs can't possibly know the goal specific product performance of all of those products. And so we want to bring some data to them to make their job easier and to make everybody more confident in the decisions they're making about what to buy and what to sell.
So you guys
And
can
when we
almost
start, when
integrate into the menu, like all the digital menus with everybody to say like based on
yeah,
your,
we
so like,
we've built six or seven point of sale integrations so far this year, and we've got a couple more to build, and that's how we attach, our database to
that's really cool.
a retailer's
So
database so that we can kind of apply our product recommendation
there's
algorithm.
yeah, there's a thing in retail right now where you go on one of their partner websites and you fill it out and how tall are you, how much do you weigh that much because you're fat or because you're muscular, stuff like that. And then it says based on your recommendations, we say this is your size. But then again, you go to another website that uses the same widget and you didn't fill it out there, but it does their algorithm and tells you the size. You guys are almost like that for cannabis, where it's I log in, it knows that I have a jointly account, and then boom, it makes the recommendations based on my history. I need that. I'd like for that. That's the one thing that would get me using ecom over going into the store, because even though I know the bud tenders are biased and everything, that interaction, that information now, granted, and I don't mean to sound arrogant, I think I'm intelligent enough to disseminate if they know what they're talking about or not, or at least to my knowledge of it. But if we can make that virtual, I would be more likely to do more e-com purchases because I would feel more informed without having to go in.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love in-store brick and mortar retail, obviously because of my background in history. I was used to work at a Blockbuster Video in college, so I have a long history in
Miss Blockbuster.
being I do too. That was a lot
It
of
was
fun.
an experience. That's the problem, is we lost the experience.
Yeah, and I think in the dispensary there's a lot more to going to the dispensary than just picking out your product if you're doing that experience right, and if you're creating some community and some culture around your store and being welcoming and educational. So I definitely see the importance of the future of brick and mortar retail, but I'm also excited when we're gonna right now when you tell Sparks when you make one of those reflections in the Jointly app, Spark doesn't know about it yet. It's not, we haven't connected your reflection to Spark's knowledge, but pretty soon we're going to, so that when you make those reflections, it's going to make Spark smarter about how to help you choose what you want to use next. And so we see, the data can be used in store or in our app or on somebody's website, and it's got a number of ways it can be helpful.
How are you guys finding
your
like how are you getting more users? What advertising channels are you guys using? Because to me this is great. It just, we need to get more people doing it. It's always been, I think people have a bad experience in cannabis for the most part, is lack of education, lack of knowledge. And also, like, I hate saying this, a lot of stoners out there, they want to get you as high as possible, and that's stupid. Like Seth, and if he's not the first one, the first large public figure I saw that said that was dumb was Seth Rogen, when he'd say, listen, I can smoke a whole joint. You can't. If you're trying weed for the first time, it's strong. Take a hit, wait 15 minutes. If you didn't feel it, take another hit, wait another 15 minutes. And I think not enough people are getting into weed that way, or getting the education of what they should or shouldn't be smoking. And they have a bad experience and then they never do it again. And that
and then they
stigma
never come back.
continues to go.
Yeah, no, it's tricky like that because most people's first impression of it is either, some, joint or a blunt getting passed around at a party or with friends, or a weed brownie where they don't even have any idea how much is in there, and they have a bad experience and never come back.
I rolled a blunt earlier today. I didn't smoke it yet. That's like the size of my pointer finger, right? Because I like cigars, and I don't know, the wider you roll them, the better they taste. I don't intend to take it down myself. I plan on bringing it around friends, but like, that's not for everybody. I fully recognize that's not for anybody. I'm a sick bastard. You know, but that not everybody's like that. Not anybody would see like a first timer, someone who hasn't smoked in a while, and be like, "Yo, this isn't for you. Don't touch that. Like, I got a little guy for you if you want it." So,
yeah. Oh, and to answer your question about how we,
yeah,
a lot of our growth has been organic because we're not a large operation, so we don't have a huge marketing budget. We do have social media presence, and we've been to conferences, and we have a newsletter now that has 150,000 subscribers. So
wow.
that's those are people who have signed up for our app and opted into the newsletter. So it's a kind of a small but growing community, and we do the typical SEO stuff to try to get people to our website. We do paid ads here and there, but Obviously those are expensive and there's a lot of limitations on what you can
Yeah.
say, obviously on the different platforms.
How
Um,
is how has the transition been going from someone who operated a physical retail space to an app-based service? I mean, it couldn't be more different, I can imagine.
yeah, for me personally, I mean, it's been at like remote work and like it kind of happened during the pandemic too, because I had the bike shop from 2010 or so to the beginning of 2021, and I was in the store in the building. I even lived in a loft above the building, so I was like there in the uh in the building all the time. And now I'm just in what I call my Zoom room here. And our company is fully remote. Like we had started looking for a little bit of office space, the few of us that were working on jointly in the spring of 2020, right when COVID hit. And so luckily we hadn't signed any leases or anything like that, because when COVID started, then we're like, well, we're glad we didn't
Yeah.
get an office right now. And so we just then learned have learned a lot about remote work best practices and how to coordinate people's schedules and activities and teams across time zones and all digitally. So it's been a it's been an interesting run. Not now I don't know if I'd ever want to go back to an office again, because I do like working from home.
Yeah, I like working from home too, but I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and they're done with school by like 1 o'clock. So the afternoons are rough around here, but it's still nice.
Hard to be productive when they get home.
Yeah, like this is funny. On Tuesday, I'm sitting there on a call from like 3:30 to 4:30, and the entire family's over here getting ready for Halloween. And there's just yelling. I don't even know what they were yelling about, but I'm sitting in my office and there's just yelling going on from the other side of the door. And I'm like, I'm trying. That's why, like, so we had rescheduled this because I had someone working on my house earlier. That's why after that experience with them yelling and I was on a work call, I'm like, I am not gonna be able to focus on this interview. So, but the remote work thing is great. It's definitely conducive to cannabis consumption, but
And it's been great for hiring too, because when we need help with something, it doesn't matter where the person is. So we have people in Ohio and Michigan and Florida and Maine and California, and
very
um,
cool.
they're all people who are good at what they do, and a whole bunch of them are cannabis enthusiasts too. So um,
So what specifically would you want people to know about the Jointly app? What message should we get out there?
um, hmm, good question. I'd love for people to try it, um, and tell their friends.
Yeah,
but
I
uh, but but really, I think um, as we've I think the most important lesson that we've got learned from jointly and from our data is that we've been able to prove that the stigma is false with data,
yeah,
and that if you ever meet anybody who still thinks that cannabis is bad for society or bad for individuals who use it properly, or um, or that cannabis makes you less, or that it makes you lazier. Like, we have the proof in our data that that's not true, because we have
yeah.
hundreds of thousands of people
Well,
who are using cannabis to make their life better, and we have the data that proves that it works for at least 12 different reasons. So
I agree.
um,
I think people really need to educate themselves. And I think people need to look back on their life and think about the things that they do enjoy, right? And at some point, you figured out things you didn't like and you did like. Like, let's go back to alcohol, right? And I know everyone says you can't compare it to alcohol, but you can in this situation where, I think you and I spoke on our last call or pre call where I would say everybody has that one alcohol that they don't drink anymore because they had a bad experience on it. There are people who just say, there are people with bad experiences and they just don't drink at all, And then there are certain people who are just like, I can't drink whiskey. It makes me angry. And just for some reason, whether it's, physical or mental or whatever it is, they stop drinking whiskey, or I can't drink tequila because I drink too much of it. Or, for me, I had a bad experience and I threw up with rum and I do not like drinking rum, but I'll still drink. I still love whiskey. I still love tequila. I still love that stuff. It's the same thing with cannabis. Like, where people are very known for saying, oh, you're just not smoking the right strain. Well, that is true. Like, if you're one of those people, it's like, I can't drink liquor anymore. I'm not going to drink tequila anymore. Think about it the same with cannabis. Like, maybe a kush is not for you because you're going to go to sleep 10 times out of 10. Think about the people who like wine. Certain people like whites, certain people like reds. Some people
right.
like both. Some people like Merlot. Some people like Cabernet, right? Everybody has different tastes. It's all considered wine. So when you look at weed, when you look at cannabis, look at it the same way that different products will do different things to you. in the same family, but it's going to do different things. You might find something you like if you're willing to take the time and educate yourself on it. And I think your app
Yeah.
does that perfectly. And I think it goes beyond anything that I could have fathomed as far as figuring out, exactly what I like and how to regulate those experiences, especially as I'm trying to deeper understand what's available in the Florida market. It's something that I'm going to continue using. And I do suggest everybody else take, if you want to understand your cannabis use and your relationship with cannabis, I highly recommend using this.
Thank you. Yeah, for me, it's Sambuca, the black licorice flavored alcohol. I had a bad experience with that in high school, and I haven't. Anytime I smell black licorice, 48 years old now, and I smell black licorice, and I can't, I can't
Exactly.
go near it. But yeah,
Exactly.
with cannabis, it's like you like. I think most people, even a lot of people who are consuming, kind of their experience exists at a local maximum. Like they found that, just like you when you were using it with your friends to escape at the end of the day, right? Like when I first, like I was when I first started using cannabis, I was using it at home, end of day, after work, to relax, go to sleep better, and so on. But once I started going hiking with it, or like if you're going to the zoo or an art museum, like it just makes cannabis makes the whole experience so much better in so many ways. You can connect to the people you're with better, connect to the places you're in, the activity you're in, and as long as you choose your product and dose right,
I'll one up you, and
it enhances everything.
I'll go controversial here. I leverage it for parenting very heavily.
Yeah,
I am one of those people. I have a very hard time disconnecting from the stresses of work, getting my mind to focus on not working. I don't want to say I feel guilty, but I feel like even after hours late, like if a Slack message comes in at 6:30, I'm putting my kids to bed, I feel obligated to look at it. Just anybody
yeah, me
reaching
too.
out to me on my phone. And when I smoke on the week, like I'll wake up on a Saturday morning and I'll smoke, and I'll actually smoke a full joint on a Saturday morning because it kind of signals to me like, hey, today's family day. You're gonna go and you're gonna have fun. And I might, maybe it is coping, and I won't try to hide that, but it allows me to focus on being present for my family and being there. And again, I do have to pick the right strain, because if I pick one of those sativas that puts me in my head, I might be there, I might be focused on them, I just not may not be verbalizing it. So
Right. Yeah.
but it does help me. I believe it makes me a better parent. I believe it makes me a better husband. um
I think
but
that's
it's
true.
also
A lot of our users report the same thing, that the it helps them be more engaged with their kids, with their family, be present. Like if if it helps you forget about your work worries while you're sitting on the floor playing Legos, like, and having fun with your kids, I think it's done something
You
good for
should
everybody,
see the race car that I built the last time that we played with Legos. It was ridiculous. The kids don't even want to take it apart. It was that good. So, David, man, it has been a pleasure speaking with you. I'm gonna continue to use the app as you guys progress and it gets bigger. I'd love to have you back and do this again. I'm gonna highly recommend it to people. Um, yeah, everybody go out, download the Jointly app. You can iOS or Android, put it on your phone. When you smoke, take, I don't know, 25 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute. If you're really high and you have to think about your answers, and document your experience, I promise you, you will have a better relationship with cannabis. You will understand what you like. Shit will make sense to you. So do that, download the app. Before I let you go, let's the rest of the promotions, websites, social media, anywhere else they can find you.
Sure, yeah. My name's David Kooi, Kooi. So I'm easy to find with a name like that online. You can find me on LinkedIn or wherever. And um, our website is jointlybetter.com. All one word, all lowercase, jointlybetter.com. The app's available for iOS and Android, free to use, no advertisements. Your personal data is safe with us. We're only interested in adding up all of the insights and helping people find a better experience and find the products that'll work best for them.
Awesome. Well, David, thank you and look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Absolutely. And thank you to everybody at home. Appreciate you watching. Of course, if you missed any part of this interview and you'd like to catch again, check it out on our YouTube at youtube.com/elevate your grind. You can watch the audio version wherever you download your podcast, Apple, Spotify, iHeart, Stitcher, whoever else is posting podcasts these days. If you want to check out anything C Lab, again, Google Cannabis Lab Eventbrite or join clab.com. Folks, it's been another episode of Elevate Your Grind. We'll see you next time.